Hare Krishna. How long?
Yeah.
Saturday.
5 days.
From Tuesday to Saturday.
Tuesday, including Saturday.
Saturday lunchtime here.
Tuesdays are only welcome.
What's that?
Tuesdays only welcome.
Oh. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Shunyavadi Paskatya Desitarine. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jam Vishnupad Paramhangsa Brahmadakacharya Asadhara Sadushi Shiman His Divine Grace Shalasi Bhaktivedanta Swami Raj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Gaur Premanande Haribos Slava Zarani Bhaktam Slava Shri Guru Shri Gaurangi Om Vishnu Om Agyanatamanandasya Kinanjana Salakaya Chaksur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamaham Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Scha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Vrajana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Visakan Vitam Scha Hey Krishna Karna Sindhu Dinabando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prishubhanu Sudha Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakapa Trubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patidanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Pranityananda Shadwaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 5, Karma Yoga, Action, Krishna Consciousness, text number 19. Yahaiva terjita sargo Yesham samye sitam manaha Nirdosham hi samam brahma Tasmad brahmani te sitaha Yahaiva terjita sargo Yesham samye sitam manaha Nirdosham hi samam brahma Tasmad brahmani te sitaha Ihaivater jita sargo Yesham samye siddhamanaha Amhi samam brahma Brahmani te sitaha Ihaivater jita sargo Yesham samye siddhamanaha Dosham hi samam brahma Tasmad brahmani te sitaha. Okay, one of the ladies. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Ihaivater jita sargo Yesham samye siddhamanaha Nirdosham hi samam brahma Tasmad brahmani te sitaha. Two ladies are you allowed to do it too. Ihaivater jita sargo Yesham samye siddhamanaha Dosham hi samam brahma Tasmad brahmani te sitaha. Iha, in this life, eva, certainly, tai, by them. Jita, conquered. Sarga, birth and death. Yesham, whose. Samye, in equanimity. Stitam, situated. Manaha, mind. Nirdosham, flawless. He, certainly. Samam, in equanimity. Brahma, like the Supreme. Tasmat, therefore. Brahmani, in the Supreme. Te, they. Stita, are situated. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Those whose minds are established in sameness and equanimity have already conquered the conditions of birth and death. They are flawless like Brahman, and thus they are already situated in Brahman. Please repeat. Those whose minds are established in sameness in equanimity have already conquered the conditions of birth and death. They are flawless like Brahman, and thus they are already situated in Brahman. Purport. Equanimity of mind, as mentioned above, is a sign of self-realization. Those who have actually attained to such a stage should be considered to have conquered material conditions, specifically birth and death. As long as one identifies with this body, he is considered a conditioned soul. But as soon as he is elevated in the stage of equanimity through realization of self, he is liberated from conditional life. In other words, he is no longer subject to take birth in the material world, but can enter into the spiritual sky after his death. The Lord is flawless because he is without attraction or hatred. Similarly, when a living entity is without attraction or hatred, he also becomes flawless and eligible to enter into the spiritual sky. Such persons are to be considered already liberated, and their symptoms are described below. Ihaivatera jita sargo yesham samye samam yesham samye sitam manaha nirdosham hi samam brahma tasma brahmani te sitaha. Those whose minds are established in sameness and equanimity have already conquered the conditions of birth and death. They are flawless like Brahman or Brahman, and thus they are already situated in Brahman. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutaya Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswatam Deve Gauravani Vicharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskyatyade Sadarane. Bhagavad-gita has the same themes throughout. This is one of the themes. How to come to the platform of liberation, which is known as Nishtha. So this is repeated in practically every chapter. As in the last chapter where Krishna summarized everything and says, Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma, Nishoshiti Nakangshati, Samak Sarveshu Bhuteshu, Mad Bhaktim Lavate Param. That Prasanatma, Atma means the self, Prasanta, well here Prasanatma, translated sometimes as joyful, prasanta. It could be, I guess it has that word santa in there. Prasanatma. So that's chapter 50. Well, it's not really present. Anyhow, prasanta means joyful. In other words, just like when you're in prison for a long time, and then suddenly they let you out of prison, you feel joyful. That's finally I'm free. A little bit of that when people go to work or go to school 5 days a week, and then Saturday they're free. Friday afternoon or evening, they feel liberated. So but this liberation is more permanent, lasts a longer time. And what's the qualification? Nishoshiti, nakangshiti. Give up lamentation and hankering. And then one can see all living entities, Sara Bhuta, Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma, Nishoshiti, nakangshiti, samak sarveshu bhuteshu, mad bhaktim levite param. Then one can see all living entities as spiritual beings and treat them as spiritual beings rather than objects. In other words, it's a change of consciousness from exploitation to appreciation. When we're in the material world, try to imitate Krishna, we're always hankering, as Krishna says. Ichcha dvesha samutena dvandva mohena bharata sarabhutani samoham sargayanti parantapa. Ultimately, although we'd be embarrassed to say so, but ultimately we're trying to become God. Of course, we're much too innocent and too nice a person to say, I want to become God. I just want to become the best, better than everyone else. And if I can't become better than everyone, at least someone. I have to feel better than someone. In other words, we have to control something. Everyone has their own way of controlling. People read books, how to win friends and influence people. Because they want to control somehow. And why do they want to control? Because there's a kind of sense gratification in controlling. I'm the Lord, and you're my servant. I am enjoying you. Even a banana on the plate, we feel, I'm the Lord of the banana. And now I'm going to devour it, enjoy it, and it's going to empower me to eat more and more bananas and tomatoes and apricots and spinach. In this way, I'm becoming empowered. And how will I use my empowerment? Well, maybe I have a family, so I'm going to be the savior of my family. I'm going to give them spinaches and apricots and tomatoes. Maybe some pakoras if they're super nice to me. In this way, we have these feelings of being the controller, feelings of being especially the enjoyers, and ultimately the saviors, the maintainers. In other words, we can't really become God very much, especially in Kali Yuga. Most people have to become something other, but we have to feel like we're God in some respect, that we're somehow or another something special in someone's eyes. If no one else's eyes, at least in our parakeet's eyes. When we come home, the parakeet starts flapping around in great joy due to my influence and presence, spreading my mercy to my parakeet. Or the dog, especially nowadays. People are very fond of their pets. You come home, the pet jumps on your lap, starts licking you. You think, oh, this is love. This is real feeling. Because we want to feel like we're loved, we're appreciated, we're the center of existence. In other words, we want to feel ourselves to be the controllers, the enjoyers, and the saviors. So when we're trying to become the controllers and enjoyers and saviors, we're hankering for that situation. And we're always lamenting because it never satisfies. We never feel like we're completely in control. We never completely, even when we enjoy, it's so temporary. The ice cream quickly disappears. Even the pizza doesn't last for too long. Nothing enjoyable is exactly as much as we like. There's always some limitation. And as far as appreciation that we're the savior. Srila Prabhupada was saying in one lecture that Gandhi, he gave everything he had for the service of his country, trying to get everyone to love him, but ultimately not everyone loved him and someone killed him. He wasn't appreciated completely. So this hankering, this lamentation, is ultimately, as Prabhupada writes in the purport, we're hankering to become the supreme in some respect, and we're always lamenting because we can't do it. And even when we get the topmost pinnacle of perfection in some area, we get our Academy Award, we get our Nobel Prize, we still die anyhow. We have to start all over. So we were able to enjoy the spotlight for a few moments, and then it dims, and it goes on to someone else. And we're left in the darkness again. No one loves us. No one remembers us. Even if we become Brahma, can anyone tell me who is the Brahma in the last creation before this Brahma? Does anyone know who he was? But he was a big man at one time. He was Brahma. And now even no one knows him. Who knows? He could be an ant in our room right now. He was Brahma in his last lifetime, and now he's an ant crawling around in our room. And we're thinking we're a big man or a woman compared to this little ant. So, if you think this lecture is meant to discourage you, you're right. We should get discouraged. But on the other hand, if we can conquer the conditions of birth and death, and what is that? Udarat atmanam avasarayat admaiva yatmano bandura maiva ripuratmana. A man has to elevate himself by his own mind and not degrade himself. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well. So what's the difference? One is hearing about materialism, and the other is hearing about Krishna consciousness. That's the difference. If we hear about Krishna, then we're actually associating with Krishna and his various spiritual energies. And if we don't hear about Krishna, and we hear about something else, it's going to be in one of the modes of nature. And if it's in the mode of ignorance, then hearing in the mode of ignorance too much, then we become inspired to act in the mode of ignorance. Our mind becomes full of lamentation and ignorance. And if we hear about passion, then we become inspired to try to experience what it would be like to gratify our senses. And if we hear about goodness, then at least we have some tendency to maybe work in the material world in such a way that we become purified. In any case, whether goodness, passion, or ignorance, the whole idea is that as long as our minds are filled with thoughts, material thoughts, material static, then it's very hard to concentrate the mind upon Krishna. And without concentrating the mind upon Krishna and actually be able to feel Krishna, because one thing to think about Krishna, even to think about, the other is to have enough concentration that we can actually feel him, his presence. And when we can feel his presence, then we can actually feel the spiritual nature. Now, as long as our minds are covered with feelings, especially thinking, feeling, then we'll wind up willing to act in the material world, in material consciousness. So feeling is very important, how we feel. And how we feel, dayato vishayam pumsam sangaste shupajayate sangat sanjayate kama krodo vijayate. So as long as we're not feeling in Krishna consciousness, we're not feeling Krishna's presence, then we're not going to be satisfied. We're not going to be happy. And we're going to have to try to figure out what I can do with my senses to feel something which I call pleasure. If we don't feel spiritual pleasure, then we're going to have to feel material pleasure. And then in order to inspire us, when the material nature sees that we want to enjoy material pleasure, because that's not our nature, then she inspires us with lust, kama, kam. And kam means that, as Krishna says, kam has two aspects. One is the illusory aspect, that manifests as the illusion, dumena vriyate vanir yatardarsho malena cha, itobinavrita karavas tata tenenam avritam. One is the covering potency, where we're an illusion. That's actually, although it comes first in Bhagavad-gita, it comes after, well, they kind of like go together, but as soon as we are bored, we want to look around to see what's enjoyable, we don't see things in relation to Krishna and service to Krishna, then material nature supplies lust to us. And we're busily gratifying our senses, trying to squeeze some happiness out of our body and senses and mind. And then if we do feel some satisfaction, then we become greedy for some more. And then when we can't experience the satisfaction of the senses, then we feel frustrated. And then we just lament in illusion. Lament that I lost, or what is that famous song that this band was singing for their whole life? I can't get no satisfaction. You've heard that song? How does it go? Can't get no satisfaction. Anyhow, they're singing. I guess they still don't get any satisfaction. So, as long as we're not in Krishna consciousness trying to serve lust, anger, greed, then the result is it covers our consciousness. And we live in this make-believe world where we're this body and this is our pastime and we have some kind of future and that we're going to enjoy, we're going to control and enjoy, and maybe I'm going to save a few people if they're nice to me. I'll help them out. And this dreamlike state goes on, and then we at once lose our attraction to hearing and chanting about Krishna, because it doesn't have an immediate effect on us because we're too much absorbed in feeling our illusory energy, our illusory existence. So here, the mind is very important. Although it's only a stage that's mentioned here, sameness and equanimity, still it's an important stage, because from that stage one can actually begin to experience what Krishna consciousness is, what it's like to become conscious of Krishna. Of course, we may have a little bit of experience like that, but actual experience of that really starts after we come to sameness and equanimity. We no longer look at others as objects of our satisfaction or threats to our satisfaction. So as long as we're thinking in terms of this body, what's going to satisfy our body and therefore ourselves or our mind, or what will harm ourselves or our mind, which will make us feel unpleasant, because that's our main focus. I want to feel happy, I want to feel satisfied, I want to feel. I don't care what anyone else feels. Or maybe I do care what everyone else feels. But I only want to care about what other feels if it makes me feel good. If others feel bad, and it makes me feel good, then that's good. And if others feel bad, but it makes me feel bad, that's bad. So everything is judged by how we feel. And I'll make other people feel happy if it makes me feel happy. And I'll make other people feel bad if it makes me feel good. So it's all centered around how I feel. And the result is that we never really feel completely happy. I mean, what kind of happiness is it to relish how other people feel bad? It's kind of a very low standard of happiness. And even happiness by having other people feel good. But how long can you make? How much work do you have to do to make other people feel good? And after a while, they'll think, well, they're working so hard to make me feel good. Well, let them work harder and harder, because I never really feel good. Then they think, well, this person's working hard to make me feel good. Let them work even harder to make me feel better. Unless you're married, then it's a business deal. Because if you're married, then generally it's understood that it's a partnership. I'll make you feel good if you make me feel good. And I'll make you feel bad if you make me feel bad. So marriage is usually important because that way you don't expect. After a while, you know what to expect. And in other relationships, we go around trying to figure out how I can get a better deal in the relationship. How I can act in such a way to make others feel good so they'll make me feel better. So it's all on the mental platform. And very, very difficult. As I said, even Mahatma Gandhi spent his whole life trying to make his countrymen feel good, and still some of his countrymen, no matter how hard he worked, some countrymen didn't feel good and they killed him. So what to speak of our poor selves? How much are we empowered to make people feel good? And how much are we empowered to make people feel bad, and then they'll work hard to make us feel worse? No one was working so that I can feel equally bad. They wanted to make sure that we feel worse, and that will make them feel good. Therefore, this sameness and equanimity is only possible when one is actually understanding that my only business is to serve Krishna and Krishna's representatives. Because they are on a platform that if I work for them, they'll feel good all the time. They'll feel good, and they'll help us feel good too. No matter how other people react. Just like Arjuna, he was killing people on the battlefield. Now I'm sure most of them didn't appreciate that. Didn't think, oh, Arjuna's so kind. He's coming out here and shooting us with arrows and killing us. How sweet. Now I'm sure some of them didn't feel very good about that. But because he was working for Krishna, he always felt good. And because he was ecstatic and feeling good, actually he was benefiting everyone, although they didn't feel so good. Just like a doctor, he takes a knife, and hopefully you're under an anesthetic, so he's cutting you. So you may not feel very good, especially after the operation. But he's doing it for your benefit. Now if you go on the street and someone tries to steal your money, takes a knife and stabs you, he's not doing it for your benefit. So you won't feel very good, either before or after. So Arjuna was fighting and he was killing people, but he was doing it in Krishna consciousness, because Krishna wanted him to do it. And therefore he understood that he was actually benefiting everyone, whatever he was doing, because he was doing it under Krishna's direction. And therefore he felt good towards everyone. He was everyone. He had no animosity towards anyone, really, because he was fully conscious of Krishna, and he saw whatever he was doing was for their benefit, and he was their well-wishing friend. So unless we have that attitude, then our mind can't be in sameness, because we'll think this person is he's going to bring me something, just like Raghunath Das Goswami. He was in Jagannath Puri, and at first his parents were sending him money, and he was enjoying the money that the parents sent, and having nice prasadam, and inviting Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for prasadam. And then after a while he thought, well, I'm dependent on these materialists, the money might run out or whatever, And this is not very good. Now I'm dependent on these persons who are more or less my father and my uncle. They're materialists. So I'm imbibing their consciousness. So then he started to beg from the priests who were passing by at Jagannath Puri. But then he thought that now I'm judging the priests. If they come by one day and they give me something to eat, then I think they're nice people. And if they walk by and ignore me, then I curse them within my mind. At least I feel bad about them. These rascals, they have something, they're not giving me anything. So that consciousness is very disturbing to oneself. We may think, just like Prabhupada gives the example, that the vulture is in the sky and he's cursing the cow to die so he can eat it. So what kind of consciousness does the vulture have? It's not exactly loving consciousness. I curse you to die. But it doesn't have any effect on the cow. He's just suffering because of his lack of proper consciousness, the vulture. Similarly, if we don't have the proper consciousness, if we don't have a happy, blissful consciousness in Krishna consciousness, because that's the only way we could have a happy, blissful consciousness, because Krishna is the source of bliss. You take away the source of bliss, you can't be blissful. So unless we're in Krishna consciousness, we can't be blissful. Unless we see others in Krishna consciousness, we can't be blissful either all the time. And unless we're serving Krishna's mission to help others become Krishna conscious, then we have some other mission. And the result is we'll never be steady in our consciousness, and sometimes we'll be excited, sometimes we'll be peaceful, sometimes we'll be depressed. And we just think that's life. To go through changing, going up and down like a yo-yo, yo-yo. Sometimes ecstatic, sometimes depressed, sometimes excited, sometimes whatever. We think, well, that's life. But that's not real life. Real life is to always be blissful, always be loving. It's a question of who we're serving, that's all. If we serve Krishna's devotee like Srila Prabhupada, who knew the art of being Krishna conscious and serving others to help them become Krishna conscious, who actually had that vision, then the result is that one always becomes blissful. So therefore, this particular consciousness of being the same and equal doesn't come by just looking around and imagining that everyone is Krishna's eternal servant. As it says in the previous verse, Vidya Vinaya Sampane Brahmani Gavihastani Shuni Chaiva Swapake Cha Pandita Samadarshana. That the humble sages, by virtue of true knowledge, see with an equal vision the learned and gentle Brahmin, the cow, the elephant, the dog, and the dog-eater. We can try to imagine like that, but it's not going to last very long. And therefore the verse before that says, Tad buddhyas tad atmanas tad nishtas tad parayanaha gachatnyapana avritim gyanani duta kamashaha. One's intelligence, one's mind, one's faith, one's refuge are all fixed in the Supreme, that one becomes fully cleansed of misgivings through complete knowledge, thus proceeds straight on the path to liberation. In other words, unless we utilize our intelligence to hear about Krishna in such a way as that our mind actually starts seeing with our intelligence, Krishna consciousness. And not only that, but then faith has to be developed. Faith means experience. We're not only hearing and seeing, but we're actually acting according to that. And then we're actually realizing it. Like someone may say something unpleasant to us, and the natural reaction is, who do you think you are? Do you know who I am? And then they go, no, who are you? Well, that's a good question. I don't really know either. Anyhow, but you shouldn't treat me like that. You know who I am. I'm a devotee. I'm something, or whatever I think I am. So tolerant. To think that Krishna is teaching me tolerance, and he's putting me into a test, and now I shouldn't react according to my false ego. I should realize when someone says, do you know who I am? Says something, we should think, well, all right. I have to tolerate. It's not me. I shouldn't react according to my false ego. I should try to think, how does Krishna want me to react? How does he want me to think? And then we may remember something, like Prabhupada was giving a lecture in Montreal in 1968, and one Indian man came in and started to criticize Prabhupada in the midst of his disciples there, saying, who is this man? What is he saying? It's all nonsense. And he started to criticize Prabhupada. Why are you misleading these boys and girls, And Prabhupada just was tolerant, didn't say anything. Finally, the man left. And the devotees were quite surprised. And then Prabhupada said, well, I probably did something to him in his last lifetime. And now he's getting even with me. So a different vision than we have. More universal, more broad vision, so that we learn tolerance. And then we can understand that everything is coming from Krishna. So faith, not only hearing, not only seeing, thinking, but also acting when there is difficulty, when there is elation, as it says, to go on acting faithfully in Krishna consciousness. Then one will naturally learn or automatically become accustomed to take shelter of Krishna. To take shelter of Krishna means that when we take shelter of Krishna in all circumstances, that's when we actually start becoming Krishna conscious. That's when you put the iron in the fire and it gets hotter and hotter and hotter until finally it takes on the same qualities of the fire. So the more steadily we remain in Krishna's service, the more steadily we remain in Krishna's consciousness, then the more we can experience what Krishna is really like. Because the iron's in the fire. And before that verse, Krishna said, we're actually taking refuge of Krishna in any circumstance. Whether we get some, as it says here, the next verse, whether we attain something pleasant or unpleasant, we still take shelter of Krishna. And the previous verse, an important verse, Tad Yanainam Tutaraganam Yesham Nesham Tesham Aditya Jnanam Prakashiti Tatparam. When, however, one is enlightened with the nescience, by the knowledge by which nescience is destroyed, then the knowledge reveals everything, just like the sun lights up everything in the daytime. In other words, when we actually accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead and ourselves as His servant, then that's the beginning of Krishna consciousness. If we think, well, yes, Krishna is God, but I don't have to hear about Him, and if I hear about Him, then I don't really have to think very deeply about it and try to understand what it's all about, how to apply it practically. And if I think about how to apply it practically, well, there's circumstances where I'm not going to apply it. I just have a taste for material life, material things. I'm just not going to apply it because I don't want to give up that aspect of material life. So therefore our faith remains unsteady. And even if our faith becomes steadier, but even here Brahman is not the goal. The goal is to take shelter of Krishna. Take shelter of Krishna, become steadily dependent on Krishna. Think about what Krishna wants us to do and how we find out what Krishna wants us to do. And to do it to please Him, take shelter of Him. So Krishna is the foundation, and then the process of devotional service is to engage our intelligence, our mind, our faith, and our refuge in Krishna, so that we are able to see how everything is coming from Krishna. Everyone is Krishna's servant, is all Krishna's energies meant to be utilized in His service, and therefore I'm not elated if I get more, I'm not depressed when I get less. I understand what's actually going on, and I know the real value of life is to focus the mind on Krishna and give one's love to Him, because that will actually, when I experience what Krishna is really like, when I can actually feel Krishna consciousness, ever increasingly bliss and love, then I actually become happy and satisfied and productive, do something meaningful in life, rather than just working hard for my feelings, which are never steady, can never be completely satisfied, because the circumstances are always changing. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions? How do you feel about the class? You got to feel about something. Any questions? Usually everyone likes a feel-good class. You're all fantastic devotees. Everything's great. Don't worry about Krishna consciousness. Just go on being yourself, because you're fantastic as you are. Then everyone thinks, wow, what a great class. He really understood me. He appreciated me. All right, thank you very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavad-gita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanande Haribol. 29:21.
20. 20?
It says 21 there.
Yeah, it's grammatical.
Is it 20?
Yeah, because he's
Easy.
taking diary.
Yeah.
And also today was also one for Gita was also advanced. Silsila was Right. This time is 21. 21.
One night.
Yes.